Hmm. So this is the box that my 7900 XTX came in. It's been basically 1.5 years since I got it, and all I can say is that it's a lovely GPU. You will play basically every game at 1440p, and you'll be getting a bare minimum of 144 FPS in every well optimized game, even with some amount of ray tracing in them. It's an enjoyable graphics card, and I love it. I don't regret the purchase at all. And as a game development and productivity driver, it's been perfect. It's been perfect in every way to me, and I haven't had a single time where the graphics card has failed me. Let's talk about it. Starting off with how much I spent. It's 2024, and I have just finished making the full transition from being a graphics designer to a full-time game developer. And I've managed to pull together $4,000 just for my PC and a couple of months of runway. So with $4,000, I had to make a couple of difficult decisions as far as what I'm getting. The first one was I wasn't going to be buying myself a big OLED monitor. And the second was just for the sake of, financial responsibility, I needed to be spending about $2,000 on my actual PC, all the parts included there. So with that in mind, I looked at the market. I looked at all the different options. There were graphics cards like the 4080. The 4080s at the time I was making the purchase were going for like $1,600. That would have wiped out at least 75% of my PC building budget, and for some reason those prices haven't improved enough. Now, there was always the option of the 4090, but once again, the 4090 was super expensive, and it would have basically eaten the entire budget I had set aside for my PC. Of course, if I decided to be less responsible, I could push my budget to 3000, but I'm not a big fan of spending more than what I need if there is no solid benefit for my use case. The reason why I was looking at them is because for my use case, I need a powerful card that's going to let me get some gaming done, but also power two monitors and let me get work done quickly and effectively. If I have Cascador animating on one screen, I need to be able to have Unreal Engine on the other screen. I looked at multiple benchmarks from all the top reviewers, and after seeing that the 7900 XTX had close to 4090 performance in most games unless you turned on ray tracing, I decided that I am an enjoyer of the rasterized life and decided to commit to that GPU. The extra VRAM above the 4080 was also a big deciding factor. I also must say that I wasn't pleased with how Nvidia had been treating my drivers on my previous card, which was a laptop 1070, because I felt like I kept losing performance every couple of years, not from the graphics card being slower, but literally I went from getting 60 FPS on lock on Mortal Kombat, and then after one driver update, I was basically at 30 FPS all the time, no matter what I changed in the settings. That really soured me on Nvidia, and I was looking to get out. I also observed that Nvidia was making certain upgrades to their graphics systems like DLSS and frame generation locked to later generation cards, while with AMD I would have access to FSR, I could get ray tracing, I could do frame generation, which worked universally, basically for free. Later on, Nvidia added that to their graphics cards, but in the early days they were being stingy, and I cannot afford that. I have so many things going on in my life as an adult. I can't be there worried that a graphics update or or driver update is going to ruin my experience. Now, after purchasing my 7900 XTX, installation was comfortable, but of course if you look at it, you can see that it's a very big and chunky graphics card. This is not a baby graphics card, it's big and it's machinery. Now, when I put it inside of my PC, it didn't sag at all. However, just for safety, I decided to add the metal arm that comes with a graphics card. It fits nice and snug inside of my thermal. I believe this is a Thermaltake Core P3 TG Pro, which is my open case, and the cooler that I'm using is the Deep Cool Assassin 4. So with this, my graphics card is not starving for air, and overall my entire build ended up costing me just a bit above $2,000, mostly because I needed to buy two monitors, and I got them pretty cheap because I bought them from some friends of mine. So I wouldn't buy a second-hand GPU, but I was willing to buy second-hand monitors. Then as far as work, I am able to render out videos pretty quickly with DaVinci Resolve, and more than that, I can quite comfortably have multiple instances of Unreal Engine when I'm doing double testing on different ways to set up blueprints and systems. And if I am working on something in Engine and I want to take a short break to play a game, I can have Unreal Engine open, boot up my game, play it and enjoy it, and after my 1 hour relaxing session, come back to Unreal Engine and everything can just remain open. That's one of the big things that makes this a great developer GPU. I can have Blender open and working in Blender. I can be doing some animating while having Unreal Engine open, and there is no switching cost. And that's what I love the most about this GPU. Now, when it comes to drivers, drivers for this graphics card have been stellar. I generally have not had issues with it crashing or falling apart, when I'm playing a game. So that's just been my experience. Of course, I bought the graphics card and started using it about 1 year into its lifespan. So if there were any early driver issues, they were fixed. Now, why did I specifically choose the XFX Mark? Simple. It had 3 fans, it had good looks, it had a metal GPU bar to prevent sag, and above all, the temperatures that I can get on this card have always been pretty silly good. The temperatures are fantastic. I'm getting 60 degrees Celsius even on full blast. That's before I do any underclocking and undervolting, which is pretty beneficial. It has good big 3 fans that blow air, which is nice, and I like how it looks. It looks professional while also looking pretty cool. Now, when it comes to a lot of the new features like FSR is pretty friggin' fantastic. It's nice to be able to just upscale and not think about it, but honestly, even without upscaling, you're not really going to struggle with this graphics card. But it's there to allow you to have high frame rate, good quality, while not eating up as much power. There is Radeon anti-lag that's meant to reduce input lag. Honestly, maybe it's a skill issue, but I don't notice the difference. The only time I'll notice a difference is if my frame rates are low. And by low, I mean 60 FPS. I'm basically owning this card for a year has guaranteed that I will never look at a game that can't push 120 frames comfortably seriously ever again. You just get used to really smooth movement. Now 30 FPS for me is unplayable. 60 is, the game works, but I would rather not. I start enjoying my games at 120 FPS. In fact, I have data. I tested this out in Overwatch with a frame rate lock, and literally my performance when it comes to aim increases up to about 90 FPS. So basically, from about 100 frames per second, I do not improve in my shooting power. Now, speaking of frame rate limits, the big feature on this graphics card that I love is Radeon Chill. Basically, you can use Radeon Chill to lock your frame rate by setting up the idle and peak FPS to be the same, and in that way you can decide on a solid frame rate that you're really comfortable with, and I've liked it quite a lot. There is also universal frame generation with fluid motion frames. I started out with fluid motion frames 1 and I liked it, it was fine. They upgraded to 2, so it's a bit more reliable. Fluid motion frames 1 would sometimes just stop generating frames and you had no idea why. But with FMF 2, it can keep on generating frames. Now, I won't speak too much about frame gen scientifically, but what I will say is frame gen is the rich get richer kind of technology, because it is at its best when the base frame rate is already really high. But essentially all the features of the graphics card are quite good and I've liked using them. Now, power consumption. This graphics card, when at full tilt, can easily consume 420 watts, which is quite a pinch on the power bill. However, you have the option to make adjustments. For example, as I said, Radeon Chill, so that for situations where your graphics card can be pushing 300, 400 FPS, you can bring it down to about your monitor's FPS without using VSync, and just have the graphics card run at the speed and the amount of power that is needed for your best experience. And then you can also adjust the power limit, but the best thing that I've experienced is you can simply reduce the maximum frequency. Now, maybe I got the God sample, as they say, but I got a fascinating piece of silicon, because when it comes to frequency adjustment, my specific card simply allows itself to go right up to pretty high frequency levels. We're talking going up to 3,400 megahertz, and that's pretty damn good. I've enjoyed it. But not that this is going to work for game engines. For some reason this works well in productivity, but for gaming you can still get pretty high hertz, and I've been able to have it at 3,200 dead stable and reliable when I'm playing games, and it's fantastic. The only problem is if you do that, power consumption goes to the roof, and also the fans turn on and they can get pretty loud, especially for me with an open case. Also, there is a mode called 0 RPM mode that should always be disabled, and in fact I recommend adjusting your fan curve, because if you just allow 0 RPM mode to be on, yes, the fan turns on later, but you're giving your graphics card a lot more stress, because you're not keeping it as cool as it should be. And if you're spending the amount of money I spent on this, which was about $930, including shipping, about $950. Basically, let's call it $1,000. If you're spending $1,000 on a graphics card, just let it be cooled. There is no shame in it. The one nice thing is that it uses a triple pin, so I've not had any crazy heating or unreliability issues, and I've never been afraid that my graphics card will blow up. Then as far as underclocking, the underclocking has been fantastic. I have literally created a mode called Echo Mode where I bring it down to 1500 megahertz. It starts eating only about 120 watts of power, and I still get a fantastic gaming experience when I'm playing multiplayer games like Deadlock at 144 hertz. I can get it lock steady and I don't need to worry about it or think about it, and it keeps my room cool because if I'm truly pushing the graphics card, it does push out quite a bit of heat. So with all of that, my general thoughts of this GPU are that it's a fantastic GPU. I recommend it, and if you're a game developer, this is probably one of the best GPUs you can buy right now.